Hello, Tim. Welcome back after a little hiatus to
I
the
know,
Norte Gun
right?
podcast.
It's been a couple of weeks at least. So been on the road
It
busy.
has.
How about you?
Yeah, obviously you're quite busy. Despite what you might hear, I do have something of a life, so sometimes I get busy too.
Oh,
And
come on.
so, yeah, we missed a few weeks. Apologies to the audience. I have heard that at least locally, there's a good core group of folks that are listening to us, so that's really cool.
It is great.
And
Yeah, I've been getting some reports back too. When I'm home,
I,
like and shooting local matches, guys are like, "Oh my god, that's really cool what you and Josh are doing. We love the podcast stuff." So I thought, "Oh my god, we've got like 5 listeners. It's awesome." So
yeah, I think both of my Instagram followers are listening, so we've got some people. But yeah, well, before we jump into it and get going again, I know you've got a class or two, maybe even coming up that you should pitch. Well, we're kicking things off
I
right now. So
do.
so where are you going to be?
So, not to use obviously the podcast for like my own soapbox or anything, but obviously, I think if some people
Please do it.
are interested in kind of what I'm doing or where I'm going to be, this is kind of my full time job, not just the podcasting thing, but teaching in general. I'm going to be in Prescott, Arizona, at the end of May. So I know it's over Memorial Day weekend. It's typically been a little light as far as like being able to fill a class, but last year we had a really successful class there, so I put it on the schedule and put the same dates down for this year. So I'll be teaching a 2-day practical performance class in Prescott. So that's about an hour and a half or so north of Phoenix, at the beautiful Prescott Action Shooters Range there in Yavapai County. um, Actually, my buddy AJ Zito and I both are going to co-instruct that class. So that'll be the first of that class's kind to have a co-instructor with AJ and I both. So I think right now, let's see, I opened up registration about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and I think we've got 3 signed up for the class. So I would at least like to hit my minimum on that of 8, but it's open to about 14 students total. So the class is not way oversized, where you've got 20 or 25 people, on a firing line together. It's a great way to kind of get your feet wet. If you're new to practical shooting or USPSA, IDPA stuff, and for those that are practitioners of USPSA or whatnot, it's a great way to really boost your skills and progress yourself. So, but that's coming in May. And then in November, I'm actually going to be back down in Roswell to Roswell Gun Club. Lee Smith just messaged me a few days ago and wants to bring me down for a 3-day instructor diagnostics and development course. So, and I'll be there towards the end of November. I think the dates for that one are November 22nd, 23rd, and 24th at Roswell Gun Club. So that one's going to be a pretty great time as well.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
As far as the co-instructor classes go, how does that sort of work with yourself and AJ?
So with AJ and I, we teach a couple of different classes together multiple times throughout the year. We built a full curriculum called our Train for Mastery program. And so that is a 2-day course that only AJ and I teach together. Like I don't teach it on my own. AJ doesn't teach it on his own. But it's a co-instructed course where the curriculum was built by both of us. And it's not a very it's not a technique centric type of course. It's what we call a technique agnostic course. We don't really get into the meat and potatoes of like grip or transitions or things like that. The core of that particular course is designed to help you learn how to practice with a purpose. So like everything from like how to plan your practice sessions, how to regiment those things, how to practice efficiently and progressively, like how to log information, how to analyze data from the timer, how to utilize every aspect of the timer, how to create a practice journal, and like what goes in it, what doesn't, how many reps of a particular drill to do and why. So it's a great 2-day class there. AJ has hosted me for years for both my practical performance class as well as my instructor development course, and since he kind of knows the curriculum in and out there, I've invited him to kind of co-instruct that with me. So instead of it just being my core curriculum, which it is, but it's also a great way to get a second instructor's kind of viewpoint on particular things as well. So um, I kind of I preach not only to my students, obviously, to question everything and test everything, and find where a particular skill's shortcomings are. But also, like in my, I kind of live and walk that walk as well. So it's not just, like me teaching the same thing over and over again. I'm always constantly looking on ways to improve my curriculum and improve my delivery and test and question and experiment with different techniques so that I'm always bringing the best I possibly can to the students. But it's also a great way to, to kind of litmus test those things against with another instructor as well. There are things that AJ does that maybe I don't necessarily do, or his approach to things might be slightly different than mine. And it's great to give the students like two different vantage points to learn
Yeah, it
from. So
sounds it sounds like a bargain, frankly.
definitely.
You're having the teacher to student ratio, or the student to teacher ratio, I should say, and you get the different flavors of instruction that you get from different instructors all in one course.
Absolutely.
That sounds pretty cool. Have you introduced AJ on the podcast before? I don't know if people might know who he
I
is.
I believe I've mentioned him. AJ owns a company called Practical Performance, not to be confused with my practical performance curriculum. So his company name,
You'll see him in court on that one, right?
yeah, right.
There can
So
be only one.
he's
Yeah.
a master gunsmith. So he primarily builds like 1911s and custom 2011s and things like that. But he's also a national level instructor that travels all over the country teaching 1911 armor classes to performance shooting classes. He's co-instructed and been a staff instructor for Scott Jedlinski of the Modern Samurai Project with his red dot classes and things for a number of years. And then, like I said, we've co-instructed classes together. He's hosted me, and we now like co-instruct a curriculum that we've developed together as well. So yeah, AJ's probably one of my all-time very best friends. So
Oh, that's awesome. I think it's really cool when you see somebody who is a really proficient shooter, but is also a gunsmith. I think
yeah.
those people are really building from a good perspective for actual performance shooting.
Oh,
So that's kind
absolutely.
of cool to
They,
see.
they understand reliability. They understand consistency, like and tuning, like what the gun needs to do and how the gun needs to do it. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, anchoring all the choices you make and building the gun and springing it and this and that for actual performance,
Right.
not what
100%.
sounds good. It's easy to deviate, kind of.
Yep.
That's really cool. And you teach not all the time, obviously, but somewhat frequently with AJ, I think, right?
So yeah, I think I've got like 37 or 38 classes on my schedule for this year. So that's like 38, uh, like weeks throughout the year. And then when I'm not teaching, I'm, trying to compete and, kind of compete at the top level or the highest level I can. And that leaves me with about between all of that, it leaves me about 4 weekends home throughout the course of the year that I'm not teaching or taking a little time off. But with my 37 to 40 classes or so that I've got scheduled this year, I believe close to 8 to 12 of them are co-instructed with AJ.
Okay, cool.
So whether it be our Train for Mastery course or instructor diagnostics or instructor development courses, co-instructing the practical performance classes with me as well. So yeah, it's a good time.
And so if somebody's interested in this, but maybe they're not near the Prescott area or that timing doesn't work out, they can find all your classes on timheronshooting.com.
Yep, every single one of my classes is on the schedule. I just added three, including that Roswell class. Added three more today. I've got two already on the books for and opened up registration for 2025. One in Tucson, Arizona, and one in Buckeye, Arizona. One in January and one in March. So that'll be a good time as well.
Well, awesome. Well, as always, lots of training on your calendar, lots of opportunities for folks to get in with you and get gooder.
Indeed,
So,
indeed.
as far as your own shooting, what have you been up to lately? Any major matches, local matches, practice? What's been going on?
I think we shot your local match a couple of weeks ago. Um, God, it was like beautiful day on one day, and then it was like super muddy and like snowy, rainy the next day, driving all the way out to Del Norte. But that was a good time. That's the only local match that I've been able to shoot lately. Um, I've been on the road teaching, so I've been very fortunate. The last two classes I've done, or three, I've been able to do those in conjunction with a match, which has been really cool. So I taught a class in Florida a month and a half ago in Okeechobee that had a 2 day class, and then we followed that up with a 1 day like 8 stage match, which is like very similar to like a state sectional size match. And then not this past weekend, but the weekend prior, I was in Savannah, Georgia, and got the opportunity to do the same thing. So in that match, we did I think 8 stages as well, and all of the students were squatted together. So we did day one was on Friday of the class. Saturday we shot the match all together, which was super cool. And then day two, or kind of continuation of the class, was on Sunday. So that was a really great 3 day opportunity to also get to shoot a match with the students and kind of ramp up my practice and training too. I was in Texas this past week, all week long, both in Dallas and then down in San Antonio, working with another training group there and kind of doing some private training with them, which was great. And now I'm back home for a few days. There was no matches this past weekend because it was Easter, so I made it a priority to get out on my range and practice. So I spent 400 rounds or so on Saturday afternoon once I got home from Texas, and then I shot another 650 yesterday in the crazy high winds. I think we had like gusts of like 35 to 40 mile an hour out here. So it kind of made my one handed shooting, which was my regimen yesterday. I focused on strong hand and support hand shooting, ramping up for US IPSC Nationals in a week. I was working on that. So yeah, 650 rounds. I was planning on doing some training again today, but instead kind of caught up on some paperwork and some emails and getting some stuff mailed out to the post office. So tomorrow, hopefully, I'll get out to the range again and maybe shoot another 500 or 600 rounds.
How much are you trying to practice wise? Are you trying to get in before this big IPSC match?
So if I can get 3 good solid practice sessions in this week, I'll feel pretty satisfied with that. I leave Thursday, super early Thursday morning, to head back to Dallas to teach a 3 day uh, to teach 3 days and present 3 days with Tom Givens and the Rangemaster crew. So it's a huge Rangemaster. The tactical conference is in Carrollton, Texas, this coming week. So I'll be there for 3 days and won't get an opportunity to really practice on my own. So I'm really trying to cram in as much practice as I can now between now and Thursday when I leave, and then I get back there Monday evening. So then I've got Tuesday and Wednesday to hopefully cram in 2 more good practice sessions before I leave again the following Thursday
Nonstop
for US
cramming.
Nationals. So
Well, that sounds good. So, are you
yeah,
looking forward to IPSC Nationals? Is this a
I
match
am.
you're excited about? Tim
I,
Herron
I
likes IPSC.
I am. So I'm excited. This will be match number 3 of 4 required to shoot for points or for qualification, to receive hopefully an invitation to shoot for the team United States at the upcoming IPSC World Shoot, which is in South Africa in 2025. So
Gosh, that sounds like a lot of fun.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
So, do you know, just out of curiosity, who's going to be the single stack heat at IPSC Nats weekend after next?
I
Who are
know
you
for
going
a
up against?
fact that Jeremy Reed out of Texas, he's in the points hunt for a slot. Paul Clark Jr., who's kind of Paul, I believe, is out of Colorado. Paul is actually shooting on the squad with me. So I think Paul right now is sitting fourth or fifth in the points race for an IPSC World Shoot slot. And Jeff Cawthon, who just nicked me by a few percent at last year's US IPSC Nationals back in November in Florida. He got a little bit better weather than I did, and so he's right now is sitting first in the points race. I think I'm like 6 points behind him, 6 or 7 points behind him for second right now. but Jeremy Reed is right on my heels. I think a point away from me, or 2 points away from me. So yeah, the points race for the three of us are pretty tight.
That's really tight. I don't really understand how the qualifying points for IPSC World Shoots work. So is like
So
winning a
so
match
what they
10
do is they
points
take
or
your
like what?
overall. No, they take your overall percentage. So they take your percentage of finish within your division. So, like if you finished 100%, you get 100 points. If you finish 98%, you get 98 points. Or if you finished 87%, then then you get 87 points or whatever. So that's how
Okay,
the
so
points
it's
round works. And then USPSA, which is obviously the regional, like the regional director for the US IPSIC, they will, what they do is they take your top three of your four. So your four qualifying matches are USPSA Nationals in, say, whatever division that you choose. So for me, USPSA Single Stack Nationals, and then they also take your US IPSIC division. So for IPSIC, for us, it's Classic Division. So that's the crossover. So it'll be your two previous years USPSA Nationals and your two previous years US IPSIC Nationals, leading up to the that following year's IPSIC World Shoot. So for us, it'd be 2023 and 2024. They'll take those four matches, and then USPSA throws out your worst of those four, so that takes your top three qualifying matches.
okay. Wow. So you could earn 100 points if you win.
If I
But
won nationals,
yeah,
if I won US IPSC Nationals next week, yes, that would give me 100 points. Um,
wow.
and if
But you
Jeff
guys are only
finished,
separated by, I think you said Jeff Cawthorn is only 2 points behind you,
no,
or you're 2 points.
no,
Okay. So
Jeff is like 7 points ahead of me, and
oh,
then
he's ahead
Jeremy
of you.
Reed in
Okay.
Texas is only like 2 points or 3 points behind me. Like we're really really close.
Okay. Yeah, that's a pretty tight mix. So that's
Oh
really
yeah,
exciting. That's a kind of thrilling single stack showdown, really. So I'll have to keep my eyes on the
definitely,
points as that match
definitely. Yeah,
elapses.
we got a pretty close battle going on between the about the four of us. I think just under, I want to say just under Paul Clark is somebody else, and I for some reason their name is eluding me right this second. But there's somebody else that's just behind Paul, sitting in fifth. So like the top five are, I think, only separated by like 15 points.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that's a pretty tight race.
So really, it's still very up in the air.
Yep. Yep.
That's pretty cool. So what are you going to do, Tim, to ensure victory over these non-New Mexicans at
Well, I've thought
IPSC
about the
Nationals?
time of Harding
How are
approach
we going to claim
thing.
this?
But
Yep.
clubbing your competitors in the kneecaps probably not the best solution or strategy. So, I mean, my goal is just to shoot my own game, not focus on the score so much as focusing on my process and just going in. I've got 18 long stages, and it's going to be three solid days of shooting there in Phoenix. So, yeah,
You're
it's
not going
putting
to
my head
dip their
down.
mags in fentanyl, so every reload they're getting dosed and just getting drowsier and
No,
drowsier.
no, I'm gonna keep my nose clean on this one. So, but no, I mean,
Okay.
I mean, just I'm gonna have a good time, obviously. So I get to shoot with, like I said, Paul Clark's gonna be shooting on the squad with me, so I'll get to hang out with him for 3 days. And obviously, we're gonna share strategies and and try to shoot the best match we possibly can. So, and my goal is to win. So
Of course. Well, everybody here is going to be pulling for you, obviously.
I appreciate that.
I think you can do it.
I think so too.
Good. So there's actually on the Instagrams, there's been a little bit of controversy I've seen about IPSC Nationals,
Oh
and
yeah,
so what I have seen is people are upset because it seems like they've been setting up the stages, or very very similar stages to what will be at IPSC Nationals at the host range Rio Salado ahead of time, and they've been shooting them at their local matches. So
they
some
have.
people are pretty upset about that. They say that's cheating, particularly under the IPSC rule set, where you're not supposed to even walk stages other than the 4 or 5 minute walkthrough like immediately before. Whereas with
Correct.
USPSA, it's common practice for people to show up to a major match like a day ahead of time, walk all the stages, figure out plans. And so, particularly for an IPSC kind of match, some people feel like that is cheating. And
Yep.
I'll give my perspective on it, but first I'll put you in the hot seat and see what do you think about that? Are you
So, I mean, this is not anything new, right? I mean, as far as like historically, and I'm not trying to call Rio Salado out or any other particular club, but it's been decades historically that Rio Salado, the club that has hosted like the Desert Classic for 30 plus years now, which has become the USPSA Area 2 Championship. They've also done it. I know when they do like Superstition Mountain 3 gun or other 3 gun matches that Rio Salado host, it's always been kind of like the secret kind of, I don't want to say swept under the rug, but it's just been the thing that nobody really talks about. And that's that in preparation for those big matches like that, that club has been known to kind of put matches, put stages on the ground that are extremely similar to the USPSA or 3 gun stages, and kind of practicing them or testing them, that way they can make adjustments or whatever. And like, I can't necessarily say that I'm against it. But also kind of like in light of recent events and especially in light of IPSIC rule sets, it kind of leaves a little bit of a black eye, so to speak, when the the match director, the stage designer is, and a few other like IPSIC officials for US IPSIC Nationals being hosted there at Rio Salado to kind of test those stages ahead of time. And it's testing both props, stages, target arrays, and things like that. So they've been kind of running through the 18 stages at the last 2 matches at Rio Salado, and I believe there's a third match coming up this coming weekend at Phoenix Rod and Gun Club, I believe that they're going to set up. I think the plan is to set up the next 5 or 6 stages they have left or whatever to kind of test them out. Now, in their defense, they're saying obviously that start positions are changed or target arrays are changed or they're not quite the same stages. They're leaving out some steel or they're removing a port or shifting a wall around or things like that. But again, kind of in preparation for particular matches, especially something like the U.S. IPSC Nationals. It's kind of leaving a weird, like I said, it's kind of leaving a weird stain on things, in the eyes of many people outside of the Rio Salado or outside of the Arizona, kind of shooting crew, that like, hey, wait a minute, it looks a little unfair, when and now granted, every club across the country does things very similar, where the match stage designs or the match book will come out weeks ahead of time, generally 3 to 4 weeks ahead, I think, of a major match. And certain clubs across the country will be like, hey, let's help prepare our guys for the best showing they can. Like at the USPSA Nationals, we're going to take these 5 or 6 stages or whatever. We'll set them up to the best of our ability based on, a drawing or a photograph of like a miniature stage design, and try to recreate that stage as best we can to kind of get ourselves prepared. I don't have a problem with that, right? Like in USPSA, you can show up a day or 2 early and walk all the stages and like be on the stages and look at everything. You may not get to see like prop activation sequences and things like that at USPSA matches, but you can, like, to the absolute nth degree, like walk the stages and really come up with your stage plans, and that's part of it, right? That comes with USPSA. In IPSC rules, however, the rules explicitly state that obviously no one is to step foot on a stage. Now, granted, it doesn't say a recreated stage, but it says on the stage. Like, the fault lines themselves are completely off limits in an IPSC match until your entire squad has been read the written stage briefing from the RO or CRO of that stage. And then you're given a 3 minute or 4 minute, no more than that, walkthrough. And that's your only time as the squad to kind of create your stage plan and walk the stage. Whereas now it's like it's kind of like, Well, what do we do? Like you've got these clubs in Arizona basically setting up very, very similar stages. They're getting an opportunity to kind of match up how they're going to attack these stages with the fault lines kind of being where they are. And I get the argument being said that like, well, they're not the stages; they are other match directors. You know, like maybe their expectations of what they what or their feelings or take on what the stages are going to be, except that the match director and stage designer of US IPSC Nationals themselves are also shooting these stages. So now there's a rumor, or there's accusations that maybe the match director or the stage designer of US IPSC Nationals is also giving input to these other match directors of these other local matches to help them set up these stages to the best of their knowledge to like what the US IPSC stages are going to be. So again, it leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouths when like you've got what is blatant recreation of the stages that are being shared. Everybody's stage runs are being shared like on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. And then people are like scratching their head like, hey, wait a minute. Like that's that doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it illegal, but it doesn't make it right. You there were rumors back in 2022 with the IPSC World Shoot happening in Pattaya, Thailand, that there were 3 or 4 Thai matches there in Thailand and at the range that the national or that the World Shoot was going to be, that they were also recreating or shooting some of the stages to kind of test them to make sure like props activated and worked and things like that. But we don't really have all of the video evidence. We just, we kind of have hearsay and third party knowledge of things like that. I mean, it goes without saying, I'm sure other matches across the world probably do something similar. Doesn't necessarily make it right, but
Well,
it's what.
here's my read on it. To me, it really just seems like the USPSA IPSC manifestation of home field advantage.
Sure.
And I think there's, which you've touched on, there's very practical, non-malicious, non trying to game the competition based
Oh,
reasons for
100%.
doing this. A
Like
big one is you need.
shooting a partial target at 10 yards or shooting an open target at 10 yards weekend only. Like, okay, you did it at this practice match that looks a lot like that mimics a lot like the US, IPSC national stage is going to be. But when I was working strong hand or support hand shooting yesterday, I made targets really partial, really difficult, and at really difficult distances too. I'm not for sure if I'm going to see those at 7 yards or 20 yards or even 30 yards. So I went ahead and practiced all of those different distances and different arrays to make sure that I was as prepared as possible for those things. Right. But I will say port height on the walls. I will say the teeter totter thing that they were testing out. Like, yes, it is home field advantage, but for guys that have been shooting the match and now have an opportunity to really understand like the balance associated with how to get the teeter totter to work without slamming and crashing your knees or falling off of the thing, like that does lend itself to a little more than just advantageous to home field advantage, for guys that aren't able to make the match until Thursday before they shoot on that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, understood. But I don't see a good way around testing your equipment out at matches, testing out similar, maybe even very similar stages. Like you don't want to find out you have some big problem with your stage at the major match, right?
Well, absolutely.
And lots
Definitely
of
don't want
times it's hard to catch things until people are shooting it, and better to catch it at
sure,
the local. That's kind of my
sure.
my perspective on it.
So, but I mean,
So
like I
I
said, there's a little bit of like people feeling a little unjust about it, and I guess rightly so. I mean, when I started seeing the videos and things, I had to like I was also a guy kind of sitting back scratching my head too, like, wait a minute, what? Like that is identical walls, everything. So, I mean, for people to say like, oh, well, it's just the match director's rendition of what he believes those stage designs are going to be, except that we all know walls are a standard like 6 foot high by 8 foot long. We know that if a target is set up in a particular position nearest a wall, we're going to get a pretty damn good idea of like what the targets are, what the target arrays are going to look like, how the barrels are going to set around the walls, what the ports are going to be. And so, I mean, again, like IPSC compared to USPSA, there there's a little, there's a few things there that I think as a match director or area director that I think I think tie your hands a little bit more to making sure that there's like stage equality and match equality for everybody that's vying for hopefully a world shoot slot. This is a qualifying match. This is a pretty big deal.
I get the argument for sure. I just think there's practical evaluation that needs to be done on the stages.
Sure.
Um, it's high stakes
You
though.
could
I get it,
also
especially
evaluate a
for
teeter
somebody like
totter
you who's
without
trying
putting
to.
the teeter totter on a stage that has the exact same wall placement, port placement, and target placement of what the match is going to be as well. You know, like if there's a props and things like that that need to be tested, there's a multitude of ways to test those without them being kind of blatant copy of what the actual match stages are going to be
They
in
could
some
definitely
respects.
mix things up
Now,
a
there
little
are
bit.
some other
That
match stages, right, that they were like, it's different enough that I'm like, I don't really see an issue with that, But there were a couple of them I'm like, hang on now. Like that is a complete recreation, to the nth degree of a particular stage, target arrays, where the placement of those things is going to be that I look at as like, okay, like even if they tore it down and they rebuild it, I mean, I can tear down the exact same stage that I build up out of my range and then rebuild it, to a gnat's ass exact degree and have the exact same stage, even though I technically tore it down in between setting it back up. Like, I don't know. I think some of those defenses, like, from the Arizona guys, I think some of that using that as a defense is kind of a weak case at best, But it is
well,
what it is. I'm not
yeah,
I'm
I
still
see your point that
I'm
they
still
can
gonna show
split
up
things
and have a
up.
great time and shoot the match as best as I can.
Yeah, and I think that's the right way to go. And to that point, IPSC stages, I don't have a lot of direct experience with them, but since they are usually stages that are intended to be shot after only a 3 or 4 minute walkthrough, most
Right.
of the time I would expect that having the stage available to run over and over again in a couple local matches or something like that actually maybe isn't the advantage a lot of people perceive it to be. What do you think about that?
I don't
Like
know.
outside of like a memory stage, like if there was a memory stage, and I guess they do like to do those at Rio Salado with all the
Sure,
barrels, the
100%,
barrel
that would be
hell
an advantage.
mazes, that would be an advantage.
100%
No,
that could be an
no
advantage.
question. I
But I will
absolutely
also
agree with
say,
that.
just from a technicality standpoint, like being able, like, okay, do I take 5 steps from this port to this other target, or can I take a wide, like a wide gate step to reach this target? There's certain aspects there where getting feet on the ground and be in a replicated setting to be able to kind of see how you're going to blend positions together can again also that can definitely lend itself to being an advantage. I mean, if there's other things too, like, I mean, we all know obviously like typical reshoots in USPSA don't go very well. We shoot to 1 degree and then we get the reshoot and it's like, oh crap, now I've got to do it again. But a lot of times we feel like, oh, well, I can push a little bit harder this one, and we know we crash and burn. But at the same time, there's plenty of instances where reshoots go even better for somebody because they understand prop activator sequence. They understand like, oh, I was waiting a while for that steel to fall to activate that mover. And if nothing gets changed there or it gets recreated the exact same way for US IPSC Nats, somebody else is going to look at that and they might be able to leverage that knowledge to their advantage, right? Like, oh, I know based on shooting this last week that I can shoot this steel and shoot these 2 static targets before moving to this swinger activator where somebody else is going to look at that and they may not know. So, again, like I see the argument both ways. I mean, based on my history as a competitor, yeah, I mean, you can recreate a stage like to the nth degree and you're going to shoot it one way one day and shoot it completely, and have a completely different result, even shooting it the same way on another day. But again, the difference between IPSC and USPSA is kind of why there's some muddied waters here.
Yeah, I totally get it. And I'm not saying there isn't an advantage. Even on non-memory stages, there obviously is an advantage. I just don't think it's maybe as much as other some people are purporting it. Those people are purporting it to be. I don't think it's insurmountable. I think just because somebody maybe gets to shoot at maybe two preceding local matches, a couple similar stages, doesn't mean maybe they're similar skill to you. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to crush you. It
Sure.
still comes down to them executing, just like the reshoot kind of
I
analogy you were
I
drawing
agree
right
with you.
there.
I agree with you
Yeah.
wholeheartedly there as well.
But it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. We'll see if Arizona has obviously, like as Phoenix, particularly, an incredible crop of shooters. So they're anywhere across the country, match local to them or not, there's a bunch of guys there who are turning out top tier performances. But it'll be interesting to see if there is perhaps a noticeable disparity from the preparation that they've been able to receive. But I believe you can do it regardless, Tim.
I think I can too.
You don't
I
need
believe.
that. And the diagrams are available, right?
Yep.
So
Oh yeah. The all
j-
18
j-
stages have been available on I want to say the Rio Salado Practical Pistol Group or something like that. I don't want to say it's their Facebook page, but I think it's on like their practice score page or something. Like if you've registered for the match, and of course the link I think has been shared around quite a bit. So I mean, like I said, there's no doubt. I'm certain that other clubs across the country, probably with a lot less a lot less aggravation at people, pointing out that they're practicing those things because this is, it'd be one thing. Like I said, I don't want to even think it'd be one thing. Like if our local club decided, hey, we're going to set these stages up out at either out at Del Norte or we're going to set these up out at the city range. Um, it's still not the same footing. It's still not the same. It's, like our wall construction is a little different than theirs, and like people that set up the stages are probably going to have a little bit of a different like insight onto what they think the stages are going to be. But this being on the same bays, the same, designed by the same folks that are all in charge of the same thing. That, like I said, that's what's kind of leaving a black eye in this whole thing.
yeah, understood. At least the diagrams are available, though. I think I would feel very differently if IPSIC had a rule set where you couldn't even see the diagrams. But because the
For sure.
diagrams are available, you obviously a diagram is always pretty. It's representative of what you see on the ground, but it's not close enough that you can really plan out a, a stage necessarily. But you do
Right.
know from the stage descriptions and things like that the types of skills that will be tested. You get an idea of the kinds of props and if you'll see a lot of activator sequences or a lot of
Sure.
strong hand, weak hand shooting or this and that. And I think, you know, practicing your basic skill sets and then maybe tuning a couple specifically based on what you see in a match book ahead of the match is that's really all you need to do to prepare well and show up to a match and deliver a good performance. You don't necessarily need to see the stages in detail. It's about applying basic skills over time.
Sure.
Notwithstanding, it's certainly an advantage to shoot the exact stage, but I think you can. I don't think it's as I don't think it's going to be majorly changing the finishing order. Of
Yeah.
course,
No, I
when it
feel
comes
like
down to World Shoot qualifying slots and a couple percent in the match finish makes a difference, I can see from your perspective as well, where every little advantage does actually have potential significant outcome. So I can
absolutely.
understand that as well. Yeah. Well, it'll be really interesting to see. Again, I'm excited to hear how close the single stack kind of rankings are for that. So I'll be
I'm
keeping
too.
tabs on
I'm
that
too.
as the score's streaming. Any do you want a last word on the IPSC stuff and
No,
this
I think
mesh?
I've kind
Yeah.
of spoken my piece on this. So like I said, I'm
Okay.
excited.
Yeah.
I mean, you could jump on the bandwagon with everybody else too and be upset about it, or you could just, I don't know, do what I've been doing the last couple of weeks, and just anytime that I get a free hour or two, I'm out at the range. I'm shooting
Yep.
3, 4, 5, 600 rounds at a time, just making sure that all of my skill sets are, are up to the par that need to be, so that I'm as prepared as possible.
Fantastic. Well, once again, everybody in New Mexico is pulling for you, buddy. We hope to see you do great things.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Alrighty. Well, I think that's a good point to cut it. We'll catch everybody next time.
All right. See you guys.
See ya.